about Meghan and Harry and this latest initiative that they have come up with. Have you seen it? It's called the Parents Network. Now, they're doing it through Archewell, which is, you know, the charity that doesn't really do an awful lot. This is one of their first big initiatives, and it's aimed at tackling child safety online. It's called the Parents Network, so it kind of gives all sorts of tips and advice and tools to parents via the Archewell website as to how that they can navigate online and social media and stop them being able to, well, I guess help them actually being able to navigate their children online. So they've got a guide to Instagram, a guide to X, all of these sorts of things. They've also got case studies and stories of parents who have been affected terribly, some in the worst possible way, by online harms, by either their children kind of getting eating disorders or being radicalised into hatred, all these sorts of things, or even suicide. So actually the cause itself, you've got to give them credit for. The problem is Meghan and Harry are completely the wrong people to be fronting this sort of cause, because, well, wasn't Meghan herself accused of the most horrific bullying of her staff? Didn't they bully their family members? I mean, she's sort of bullying her own father by freezing him out when he's practically at death's door, God love him. Also, Prince Harry could be very easily accused of bullying his brother by revealing details of his intimate body parts in his book. So they are the worst possible people to front this. And when Meghan was asked about her own time feeling depressed and potentially suicidal, again, she was happy to talk about it again, which some people would say is very worthy, but it kind of took the shine away from the parents that were there in this interview who'd actually lost children. You could have very easily, she could have said, oh, actually, you know what, I don't want to talk about this because it's not about me. But of course, with Meghan, it's always about Meghan. It's always about Harry. So the cause itself is quite worthy, but I think those two are completely the wrong people to be fronting it. And I keep just asking myself, why are you doing this? Why are you fronting this campaign? They said during it as well that they're really worried about Archie, their son, sort of going down a rabbit hole online. I mean, the only rabbit hole that Archie will go down online is actually maybe seeing photos of who his family are, because I don't think he's met any of them. The Sussex Squad. So Meghan and Harry's fans online, they're some of the most vile people you could ever encounter. I mean, the brass neck of them talking about online hatred and online harms. The Sussex Squad, the people who are fans of Meghan and Harry online, are absolutely repellent. So many of them are so awful. You just think, how can you be preaching about online hatred and online kindness when your own fans are absolutely dreadful? So I'm not sure it's the right initiative for them. Of course, now they're doing this before they go away as well. They're going to Colombia. Have you seen this as well? They're going on another royal tour. Well, a non-royal tour. Another worldwide privacy tour. Apparently, they are going to Colombia. They're going to be going to Bogota and Cartagena and a few of the other places as well to visit impoverished areas. I'm not sure if Meghan will be wearing her £13,000 Cartier necklace whilst visiting those impoverished areas. But isn't Colombia one of the most crime-ridden countries in the world? I mean, is it? So there we've got Harry taking the British establishment to court because he's worried about security fears for himself and his wife. Yet the two places that they visited on non-royal tours are Nigeria and Colombia, two of the most crime-ridden places in the whole world. It's a little touch of hypocrisy there, wouldn't you say? I don't think they're that worried about their safety when they're going to... They really will go anywhere for a private jet and a little bit of a jolly, won't they? So, a little bit of hypocrisy on two counts.
But I think this trip is a very dangerous one. It's one of the most dangerous countries, and actually the hypocrisy of that they won't stay in London because that's dangerous. It is dangerous at the moment, but it would be for them.
Right.
But it's going to be very, very difficult for them over there.
Right. Exactly.
I think the whole thing is to go there is to attack the royal family once again and do what they like in their time, and show that they are royals abroad and phony royals abroad. And I think that's the opportunity they want.
Right.
Meghan will change her dress several times.
Yeah.
Harry will be left behind because she's alleged to speak Spanish very well. And so she'll be talking to everybody. And poor guy, he'll be left behind and nobody's going to explain what they're going to say to him. I mean, watch out for that. He's going to be very, very sulky, I think.
Yes, I imagine.
I don't blame him for that.
No. I mean, we've been hearing as well that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are being manipulated to some extent by the Colombian government because it's being used to divert attention away. Their trip is being used to divert attention away from sort of various political scandals. Because I can't understand why they're going. You know, they're going to engage with leaders, youth and women who embody the aspirations and voices of Colombians committed to progress. Well, great, but, you know, so what? You know,
I think they like playing phony royals.
Yeah.
I mean, Meghan didn't want to have a title. She was very sort of snooty about it originally with Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah.
But now she insists people do call her by her title.
Right.
And then she can enjoy that very much. And so there they are, being led around. They're staying in a hotel with a bedroom that costs £2,500 a day. So it's...
I presume they're not taking their children either.
No, they never take their children. Well, in this case, it's quite right. But I think if you really care about your children, this is not an important place to go to. This is not within the Commonwealth.
No.
So I would never risk. I mean, it doesn't matter about me, but it's a risk. It's a risk.
It is a risk. Yeah, it's a big risk. Let's talk about Harry and Meghan because apparently this is the week where they go off to Colombia for God knows what reason, but they head to Colombia, to Bogota on Thursday.
Yes.
But now the guy who was going to go with them to sort of mastermind the trip, who went with them to Nigeria, who came to London for the Invictus Games and all of that, has quit.
Yeah, so Josh Kettler, he's grandly titled Harry's Chief of Staff.
Oh,
I mean, for goodness sake, give him a break. He's his personal assistant. Chief of Staff has suddenly left. There's sort of rumours swirling around California about why he might have left.
Yes.
No one has said anything.
Right.
So they're off to Colombia, which has... This is a couple who's so concerned about the security risk and the threat to... Harry's so concerned about the threat to his wife, the safety of his wife and family, that he won't come to England with them. He won't bring them to England. And yet they're going to Colombia, which has 8 times... higher murder rate than America.
Yeah. They also happen to have the drug cartels that sort of run parts of Colombia.
Yeah.
Not necessarily all of it, but they certainly run Medellin, where I think they're going.
Exactly. And is it just that they're so unpopular around the world? They were invited by the Vice President of Colombia, and they seem to have thought, well, look, we need a bit of a, you know, one of their quasi-royal tours, they can live it up out there. It just seems absolutely crazy, but it will give us lots and lots of amusement.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are on their way to Colombia, so no better time to remind the world that Prince Harry openly discusses recreational drug use in his book Spare. Harry remembers an incident in the book where a tabloid editor claimed to have pictures of a then teenage Harry doing cocaine in an attempt to blackmail him into doing an exclusive interview. The palace called the editor's bluff. No photographs ever surfaced, but Harry admits that he was, in fact, using cocaine at that time, writing, well, his ghostwriter writing, "Of course, I had been doing cocaine around this time. At someone's country house during a shooting weekend, I'd been offered a line and I'd done a few more sets. It wasn't much fun and it didn't make me particularly happy as it seemed to make everyone around me, but it did make me feel different, and that was the main goal, feel different. I was a deeply unhappy 17-year-old boy willing to try almost anything that would alter the status quo. That is what I told myself anyway." This week, a friend of Prince William's told the Daily Beast that Prince Harry should apologize for doing cocaine as a young man. on him and Meghan Markle's trip to Colombia. The friend said Harry admitted to doing coke in his book. His trip to Colombia should include an admission that the country has been destroyed by narco-terrorists servicing wealthy drug users in the West, and he should stand up and apologize for his own participation in that disgusting trade. That would be a helpful intervention. The Daily Beast points out that drug-related crime has made the South American country one of the most dangerous places on earth to live. It has one of the highest murder rates in the world, which completely explains why a man that is hyper-obsessed with the safety of himself and his wife would hop on a plane for a friendly visit. Harry and Meghan's trip to Colombia is expected to begin on Thursday. Media friends, I am literally begging you to stop calling these hillbilly holidays royal tours. These two quit their royal responsibilities due to a lack of qualifications and an inability to handle the demands of the position. In a statement announcing the visit, the government said that Harry and Meghan were visiting in recognition of their global leadership in fostering a safer online environment. While the quote from Prince William's anonymous friend to the Daily Beast might come off as a little petty, I do find it ironic that someone who openly endorses illegal drug use is considered an authority on safety online for children.
I mean, not another one is the headline in the Daily Mail. Harry's new chief of staff leaves his job after just 3 months. I mean, extraordinary.
Yes, I mean, that's very interesting, isn't it? The People magazine, which is American, as you know, have actually very quickly said it was a mutual decision.
Ah, yes.
Yes, but actually, he was specially asked to take them to Colombia in a couple of days because he knows all about it. So they would get some sort of proper behaviour. Because it's a very, very dangerous place. But he wouldn't even wait, obviously.
No.
He's gone, and that's it. And it does show you that if you think you know everything better than anyone else, you don't want to ask anybody or let them give you advice, and things happen, staff go. We heard that there was allegations that she wasn't very nice to the staff in when she was actually working within the royal family.
Yes.
So she was a bully. Well, maybe so. We don't actually know absolutely. But, you know, she has a terrible temper. And she very, very well have annoyed this man because he's come to have his job and to control things for them. But Meghan is very determined to do things her way. So up goes another one. I think they've done about 18, 19 people.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah,
yes.
It's amazing. I mean, he was with them in London when they came, with Harry in London when he came to do the Invictus Games stuff. He was with them both in Nigeria. And he's responsible largely for setting up the Colombian trip, which seems a very odd trip to me anyway. And interesting that you say People magazine have said that, oh, it's by mutual arrangement, because People magazine is the kind of unofficial spokesperson, isn't it, of Harry and Meghan, because those are the people they speak to.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you can rely on them. You can read them and then know really what's going on. But the fact that they use it like that is sort of fascinating because they can't stand the press. They don't want to. But if you do absolutely what they want and say exactly what they say, then they love it.
Yes.
I mean, I get accused of being unfair to these couple of dribblers. Harry and Meghan, I'm still not quite sure what they do anymore. Anyway, apparently they're going to Colombia. Did you know that? They're going to Colombia. Did you know that?
Yes, they're going on Thursday. Another one of their visits. It's causing a little anxiety because...
is this British Colombia in Canada or the drug-taking cartel centre that is Colombia? Where are they going?
They're going to the one in South America, and they are going to help promote some charitable institutions at the behest of the Vice President, who's had to suffer her own fraud investigations as well. So this is all part of the Meghan and Harry, let's make us seem relevant, go on these quasi-royal visits. And you can't put it down to anything else. The only reason they're being invited is they are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and they think, maybe the Colombians think, that they will offer a little bit of stardust to help promote a conference that they're holding in November. So that's the reason why they're there.
Do you think, on a serious note, I know that there's been a lot of fraction between the royal family and these two, and I think most people would know what I think. But how does it look that a Duke and Duchess of our royal family are visiting Colombia? Now, you know, we can say they're famous for coffee, but it would also be fair to say there has been and is known to be quite a lot of drug deals and trade in that certain area of the South American coastline. Is it a good look? I mean, why are they can only be accused of doing this for money, Rupert, surely.
Well, they're trying to promote their brand and see that one of the things that when they were on royal visits, they and were part of the royal family, they didn't like it the way they were sort of being made to do things.
What brand are they promoting? A coffee brand? What? I mean, seriously, what brand?
We're trying to give them some credence, some credibility, you know, in their new era. They went to Nigeria, and again, you look at all the security costs that this might have, and obviously Colombia presumably will have to foot some of the bill to have them to the country, because at times it's not the safest, although where they're going is deemed relatively safe compared to other parts of the country. Of course, as you've mentioned, it is a part of drug capital, one of the drug capitals of the world. And of course, as Harry revealed in his book Spare, he has taken drugs, including cocaine as well. So maybe he's going to obviously apologise for that, and you'd hope. But also, they've lost their chief of staff, who presumably has been quite responsible for the organisation.
Yeah, so Harry, is their chief of staff quits after only 3 months. But I'm not being difficult, just going back to it. Are we now going to get to a point where it's rent-a-royal? Because that's how it feels if you watch it and look at it, doesn't it, to be honest, pal?
In their case, it feels rent-a-royal, because, you know, they go to Nigeria. These aren't necessarily the most obvious places to go to, but they're entitled to. It's a free world. But actually, you know that the reason they're going there is because they're the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. You know, if she was still Ms. Markle, I'm not sure she'd be going to Colombia. But because, you know, there's a degree of interest in whatever they do, some people will say, get on with it, we support them. Clearly, others have a more negative view. And so it's because at the moment they feel rudderless. At the moment, there's nothing clear about what they're trying to achieve. You know, America Riviera Orchard, Meghan can't get someone to run that for her, it would seem at the moment. You know, losing a chief of staff who was supposed to be coming in to manage their life. Well, he went to Nigeria, but now just a few days before they're supposed to go to Colombia, he's now quit his job. And when you look through their ability to keep people working for them, their turnover of staff seems to be quite prolific. And you always have to look at the top if there's reasons for that, because if it's a happy camp, people tend to stay and want to work for those individuals.
I know that I've been criticised by people in the past for criticising Harry and Meghan. We've only got a couple of minutes. They didn't want to be part of something, which is the only thing they've got that they promote to pay for their pathetic little lifestyles. And if that's harsh, I'm sorry, but you're going to Colombia to talk about your brand, God knows what your brand is, simply because you are the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and that's what you don't want to be because you were so appalled by the British royal family, you went to California. I mean, it actually, if you look at it like that, Rupert, that's ludicrous, man.
This is the problem, and this is what they wanted to be half in, half out, but the late Queen said that's not going to work. So they're trying to find a way of doing these very controlled visits. And remember, there's probably going to be a very limited coverage. It may be that there's a Netflix crew carrying around with them certain publications. Presumably People magazine will get all the exclusives they need to promote it, but there won't be anybody around. You know, they'll want to control the narrative totally, and that's always been their requirement. They don't like the way things are reported about them, and they want to control it 100%. But at the end of the day, what I think you'll see is, yes, there'll be lots of handshaking. You'll see Meghan in the foreground hogging the limelight, while Harry as the Duke of Sussex, and his title is one of the reasons he's there, sort of quietly in the background, having to play second fiddle to his wife. And
just what about the latest sort of news from London and Buckingham Palace? Because they did another interview with CBS where they talked about, you know, the dangers of being a parent and the difficulties of making sure your children don't commit suicide and all this kind of stuff. But in fact, it turns out that according to Harry, he still now doesn't speak to his father, doesn't take his calls again.
Oh, yeah, well, I answered this so many times. It's not like that. He can't ring his father because his father doesn't have a mobile. So that's a difficulty. He has to go through various aids. And also that his father is not well and he can't just jump up when Harry calls. Harry thinks he's very demanding now. I think that's perhaps because he feels very unhappy and he wants to speak to him immediately. But what he wants to talk about is that he should control the Home Office and make sure that they would pay for him for the top police protection, but they won't do that because it's only the King and the Queen and William and Catherine who have that one because they are top royals and they work extremely hard. There's loads of layers beneath that are absolutely good enough. First of all, he hardly ever comes, but he's trying to win, and this will be the third, coming up will be the third court case. But you see, his father doesn't want to talk about that. No. The other thing Harry wants to say is he's still on about them apologising to Meghan for treating her so badly. Yeah. My goodness, you know, she wasn't heard of, she wasn't known. She's now rich and goes everywhere she wants, gets invited all over the place, maybe not always a nice place, but she gets invited. And she wants things like that. And I think the other thing is that, which he's proven, is that he listens to anything his father says and then sells it. Yeah. So that's not very nice either. His father's got an awful lot to do, and he also has to look after himself and not get upset or tired because stress will not help him. And so I think that this is Charles. To say that is absolutely shocking because he knows what his father's like. He knows he's not there when you can call him. That doesn't mean anything really in a way. It just means perhaps he's resting or perhaps he's got a lot to do and it takes longer than normal. He's not for him, he's against him. That's what the problem is.
Yeah, that seems to be the problem.
On Harry and Meghan, what's this about? I've been away. They're on a tour, Colombia. What's all this about? Why are they on a tour? Is it a royal tour? Does anybody give a damn? What's happening?
Let's stop calling it a royal tour or a half royal tour. It's a hillbilly holiday. Let's be honest.
Hillbilly holiday.
The Telegraph is reporting that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are ignorantly being used as political pawns by the left-wing government, which has been, as I'm sure you're aware, haunted by corruption scandals. And they're going to go there to talk about child safety online, you know, how to monitor your children's safety online in communities they've started. But at the end of the day, I think that it's proof that these two have to leave the country to be taken seriously.
They even have to leave your country now. They left our country to be taken seriously. Now they're having to go to Canada.
Yeah, Canada, Colombia, you know, Nigeria, they're going everywhere.
Just for the money.
And I think that it's further proof that, you know, they're Joe Rogan on the cover of Daily Mail today, slamming them, making fun of them. They're the butt of the joke in the States. So they are having to go to scandal-ridden countries to be considered thought leaders. That doesn't bode well for the brand.
No, thought leaders. What a pile of old tosh.
They are off on it's a pseudo sort of royal tour, aren't they, to Colombia. Why, of all countries, are they going to Colombia?
I think that Harry and Meghan have to go wherever they're invited because they're in desperate need of being taken seriously as thought leaders. And in the States, there's still a punchline. In the UK, I imagine they're not only unwelcome, but perhaps still a punchline. And this is giving Harry and Meghan the opportunity to look like thought leaders, to stand up with other world leaders. We know that they're going to be promoting safety online for children. And Meghan is going to, according to reports, engage with elders, youth, and women who embody the aspirations and voices of Colombians. And we'll see what all they do, but I don't call it a royal tour. I call it a hillbilly holiday. They're no longer royals.
This is true. They've been to Nigeria. They tend to get treated as royals when they're there by... of course, he is still a royal, you know, he's still a prince, she's still a duchess. They still get treated as royals, often by the dignitaries that they meet. But I'm wondering what's in it for Colombia? What are they getting out of it?
Well, the Telegraph reported that locals felt like it was just a way to distract from some of the corruption and some of the misery there.
Oh, right.
They're going to parade the royals through and everything's going to look glossy and everybody's going to forget about their troubles for a few days.
Yeah, well, good luck with that.
Right, let's talk about Harry and Meghan, who haven't stayed in grim, drizzly old England and are with you over there in California, but not right now. They have gone to Colombia and it seems to me yet again mired in controversy.
So we expect to actually see them in Colombia on Thursday, and what they're going to do is really up in the air. It sounds like they're going there to promote their child safety online initiatives. Also, the government's going to take them around and show them a few places and show them. Meghan is going to speak to some young women, some ambitious women. We expect to see that on the agenda. But of course, the Telegraph reporting that these two are in reality ignorantly being used as a political pawn by the left-wing government that, as you know as well as I do, has been, you know, haunted by some of this corruption over the last, I don't even know how long, probably longer than you and I have been alive. But there is obviously controversy surrounding this trip because A, what makes Harry and Meghan an authority on children's safety online? And B, why is Prince Harry going to Colombia when he says the UK is not safe enough for his wife, but the UK and the US have severe travel warnings for Americans, for you know, anybody traveling to Colombia? They say, hey, don't do it. There's a chance you could get kidnapped. There are gangs, there are drug gangs there. You might get in the middle of something crazy. Not safe enough for the UK, but safe enough for not only Colombia, but Nigeria as well.
Yeah, it's just so random, isn't it? They say we don't want to be royals, we want to go and start a new life over in California, and yet they seem to want to just do nothing but these faux royal tours, which is just weird, quite frankly. And I've heard that yet again, a member of staff, the new chief of staff, has quit.
Yeah, so this individual's name is Josh Kettler. He was reported to quit on short notice. However, you saw Harry and Meghan's team quickly contact People magazine. They wanted it put out there, at least here in the States, that this was a job on a trial basis and the decision to part ways was mutual, with both sides agreeing it wasn't the right fit. I think that the fact that it's coming from People is highly questionable. They tend to lean very pro Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan took them to Nigeria with them. They have exclusive access. But remember, this reminds me of when royal author Valentine Lowe reported in his book Courtiers that Samantha Cohen, the former private secretary, at the request of the late Queen Elizabeth to Harry and Meghan, she compared working with them to working with teenagers. Last month, Alex, we saw Dominic Reed, the CEO of the Invictus Games. He was the CEO from the very beginning. He quit his job. Oh, they've lost almost 20 employees since 2015.
That is quite some staff turnover. Do you think they're getting paid for this tour to Colombia? Because they don't seem to be doing a great deal at the moment that could be earning them some cash.
I think that is very likely. I think that there is something in it for both sides. If you listen to the locals that believe that Harry and Meghan are being manipulated on this trip to change the narrative, to distract from some of the corruption happening there, I think that it benefits the Colombian government. They have royals, quote unquote, that show up, which tries, cleans up their image a bit. But it also, Harry and Meghan have to leave my country. They have to leave your country to be taken seriously anywhere. Harry and Meghan are so desperate to be considered thought leaders that they will go to anywhere, even if it is a dangerous country, even if it isn't a country that is considered corrupt, because they want those glossy images and they want people to look at them a certain way that they are just simply not looking looked at here. We got Joe Rogan slamming them on their own network on Netflix, within the last few days. And that's just one of a million examples I could give you of Hollywood, tearing into them and making them look like the joke that they have truly become.
Yeah, and very quickly, Schofield, because I haven't got much... Schofield? I just called you Schofield, like we're like a rugby teammates.
I love that. I love it. I can't wait to let's solve the crime together. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Very quickly, though, maybe they're sizing up Colombia to move there in case Harry's visa application is revealed to the public.
No, that's a very good point. I do think we might see Meghan endorse Kamala, participate somehow in Kamala's campaign. They are terrified of Donald Trump because he is in a position and might have the you-know-what to actually go after them and pursue something like that.
Yeah, do you know, I had a good chat with the man who started all of that. And Kins, at some point I'm going to message you because I've got some pretty hot gossip that I probably shouldn't say on air. I know, bet you wish you could all join in that little chit-chat.
Harry and Meghan in the news once again over their lack of inability to keep staff. They've just lost their rather grandly named Chief of Staff after just 3 months. But it turns out they've lost a total of 18 staff just in the last 6 years. I mean, what's going on? Is it... do they not pay people enough? Is there not enough work to do? Or is it bullying? Or what's going on?
I mean, I think the high turnover for the Sussexes is a clear sign that there's ineffective leadership, a lack of support, poor communication. It's my opinion that the frequent resignations indicate a hostile workplace culture where employees likely feel undervalued. According to Valentine Lowe's initial bully investigation...
He's a royal correspondent, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sussex employees struggled with work-life balance. Meghan apparently calling, texting, and emailing employees from sunrise to sunset and wanted an immediate response when doing so. So if Harry and Meghan expect those excessive hours, I think that can lead to some work-life balance.
People don't want to do it. I wonder also, the frustrating thing for a lot of people, especially if, say, you're a PR advisor, and, they often have these people, communications experts, if the people you work for don't actually listen to you and do things which are actually against your advice, you're going to say, well, what's the sodding point?
Yes, and in this particular case, someone did contact People magazine from the Sussex's team and say that Mr. Kettler was a temporary hire.
The chief of staff, yeah.
Yes, and this was a mutual decision for him to leave. So they understand that this is a bad look and are trying to deal with that.
Yeah, I'm fascinated also by people who are working on Meghan's new sort of lifestyle brand. Ever since, I mean, again, I can never remember what it's called because it's such a ridiculous name. This sort of the jams and the things she makes. But we've not heard about this amazing big brand launch, and nothing's been heard from it since. So I'm guessing that hasn't been very successful.
Well, we do expect that to launch at the end of this year, early next, in partnership with her Netflix series where she's in the kitchen cooking and using some of the utensils that hopefully you could buy online.
Right, yes, I thought they were telling us they're going to launch it and then nothing actually happened.
So, of all places to go in the world, I mean, and I know Colombia's become a bit of a trendy destination for some people. My daughter went there actually for New Year a couple of years ago. Nevertheless, it's still quite a dangerous part of the world, and there's still massive gang wars going on. And considering that Prince Harry spends most of his life saying how he can't come to Britain because it's too dangerous, it's a bit of an odd choice, isn't it?
Well, not where they're going. As you say, if your daughter went there, there are what are perceived, and even Home Office advice, Foreign Office advice, saying there are places that are deemed safe to go to. Cartagena and Cali and other places are deemed safe enough, and that's of course where they're going. They're not going to be heading off into the sort of drug hotspots, as it were. So they will be safe, but of course there will have to be security. And you're right, it does throw into question, why are they going there with these security issues? Because presumably the Colombian government are going to have to foot the bill to provide them with the necessary security for their trip and make sure it meets their approval.
Yes, but I mean, at the end of the day, you have to ask the question, what on earth is it for? Because, you know, there's all the usual kind of claptrap being written about how, you know, Harry and Meghan are going to be, you know, presenting themselves to the Colombian government, and they're going to be reaching out to community groups and, you know, talking to women and individuals and about how important it is to look after their children. I mean, it's all rubbish, isn't it?
Well, it's all part of their Archwell Foundation. It's what they believe. Obviously, we saw that promotional video the other day on CBS, which was about their work in online abuse. And Colombia are hosting a big conference in November, this is part of the promotional activities for that. But it is a way for the Sussexes to try and prove their relevance and that they are able to have an impact and help promote what they would perceive as good causes. Now, a lot of them may be well-intentioned, but at the heart of it, you feel that this is just about brand Sussex and about trying to make sure that they seem relevant. Because while on the face of it, the Nigerian trip may have been a success, but again, you know, at the heart of it also, I just feel that Harry is playing second fiddle to Meghan, making sure that she's centre stage. Because one of her beefs was when she was in the Royals is, she said, why have I got to do it and I don't get paid? But also, why was she always having to be a couple of steps behind? And that's the issue. But when they go to places, they do bring an element of stardust and people do want to see them. So, you know, if it does any good, then no one's going to say it's a bad thing. But you do feel that at the heart of it, it is not necessarily about the good causes. It's about making sure the Sussexes have some good PR.
Well, indeed. And, I mean, far be it from me to correct you, but I think the correct pronunciation for Cartagena is Cartagena as opposed to Cartagena. But there's always plenty of stardust around when you're in Colombia. And also, I'm wondering if, given that Meghan decided that she was Nigerian when they went to Nigeria, I wonder whether Prince Harry's going to suddenly declare himself to be part Colombian.
Well, I know I've studied the line of the royal family for some time, and I'm not overly convinced there's too much South American blood in it. So, but other members of the royal family have gone there. The Duchess of Edinburgh went there, I think, quite recently in a guise of for a work with the United Nations. And Prince Charles actually went there. Well, the King went back in 1974 when he was in the Navy. So, and there have been other visits in the intervening period. So it's not a completely strange place for members of the royal family to go, but it's not very often. But this feels as if this is about the Meghan and Harry roadshow and proving that this is what they want to do and they can do it on their terms.
Yeah, I mean, Harry and Meghan are off on their first day of a tour of Colombia. Nobody really knows why they're going there. Piece of the Telegraph today says Sussex's tour takes in anti-colonial hotbed. Let's find out what it's all about. Michael, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. I think this is one of the riskiest, one might even say, unwise things the Sussexes have done since they scooted off to Canada in 2020 and then on to California. What they have to sell in this world is their celebrity, and they have to be very careful that they don't sell it too cheap and to whom they sell it. Within Colombia, which of course is a controversial country in many ways, there are lots of voices of opposition to the government of Gustavo Petro, which is mired in scandal. And they say that the government there is going to exploit their royal status for its own purposes. Now, obviously, there we see them. They're going to Colombia and South America to do good work, to spread the word, to do the things that they like to do. But it's how it's perceived. Now, whenever a British royal personage goes anywhere in the world or even around the country, that invitation is scrutinized to see whether it's a good idea. And if it's not, it's vetoed. The late Queen had very, very few regrets, but one of the regrets was that she had a state visit from the Romanian tyrant Nicolae Ceausescu in 1978. He was staying at Buckingham Palace with his wife, and he was walking around the grounds, and the Queen actually hid in a bush to try and avoid him. Now, 11 years later, Ceausescu and his wife on Christmas Day were shot by a firing squad by their own people. So that's how controversial Nicolae Ceausescu was. And the royal family has always been very careful about where they go and to whom they are guests. And I think whatever their good intentions, and I'm sure they do have good intentions, that they're perhaps unwise to be there. They've been invited by the Vice President, who's Francia Marquez, and she is the Minister of Equality and Law and Justice. That's right, Equality and Justice. And she's been criticised for riding around in helicopters and doing up a house to live in instead of living in the official residence. And one of the critics out there said, and I quote, that she's the biggest fraud on the black community. She's a black woman herself.
Yes.
And obviously, it's something they should be worried about because, you're known by the company you keep.
Well, that's right. And she's also known, apparently, this woman, Francia Marquez, as very, very hot on reparations and that kind of thing for slaves, because she's going to be taking, supposedly, Harry and Meghan to a visit to San Basilio de Palenque, which is a town founded by runaway slaves that became South America's first free town and is now celebrated for its historic cultural links to Africa. So, again, it'll raise that question of, what Charles has talked about, the King, reparations for things that have happened in the past, monies to be repaid to countries around the world because they were exploited by, amongst others, our royal family.
I think the hand will be out there from Colombia to King Felipe in Madrid, waking up there this morning. I don't know whether he knows that this is coming.
Right.
But there is this fashion for reparations for the past. Of course, it was a different world. They did things differently there. If we go back to Magna Carta, or even before that to 1066 and the Norman invasion, well, perhaps we all ought to go back to the lands we all had there and share it out before the Doomsday Book, and go back to the original plantations and small farms and small holdings the indigenous population had. Where do you stop with things like that? It's history. It happened. It's regrettable. It's deplorable that there was slavery, but it was, and that was the way the world was.
Well, exactly right. But also, I think the problem for Harry and Meghan here is that they can be used by politicians like this for sort of propaganda and all sorts of, secret sort of plans that these individuals might have. And they've sort of fallen into the trap there, haven't they? Because they've gone there thinking that, this will be great, we can look like ambassadors for ourselves. They're not ambassadors for Britain anymore, they're not ambassadors for the royal family. They think it will be good for them. But actually, I think a lot of people are under the impression they're being rather taken advantage of here.
Well, I think what they're missing, and I feel a bit sorry for them, they need good advice, and that's what Buckingham Palace would have given them. I'm pretty sure, well, obviously they didn't ask Buckingham Palace about the advisability of this visit, because I'm quite sure it would have been vetoed. It's very controversial to go to that country. We all remember Pablo Escobar and the drug cartels and all that goes on. It's a wonderful country. It's a very cultural country. There's lots of wonderful things to see, and the people are probably terrific. But the president and his government are controversial. They've been mired in some scandals. And it's not the sort of place that I think would be first on the list for, shall we say, Prince William and Kate on their next foreign tour.
No, exactly right. And one more thing, you mentioned that they need good advice. I mean, they've just lost yet another member of staff, haven't they? The guy who was running, supposedly, Prince Harry's kind of operation for the last 3 months has quit. So now they presumably, and he was the guy that went to Nigeria with them, so presumably they haven't got anybody running the place now.
Well, one wonders if it was to do with this Colombia visit that maybe they had a difference of opinion about it, and they decided, I think the phrase was, that there wasn't a good fit. I understand there is a Sussex's Survivors Club of the people who've worked for them and no longer work for them. I made a quick count of recently 7 people who'd left their employ, but other totals come much, much higher than that.
More like 18, I think, isn't it?
Well, I have also heard that figure, of course. And we know that when the Duchess was in this country and performing her role as a member of the royal family, there were complaints about bullying, which of course was strenuously denied. and so much so that the Buckingham Palace set up a civil service type inquiry to look into the veracity or otherwise of those complaints by two secretaries or two assistants. At Buckingham Palace, such people are called lady clerks. They obviously they were assigned to her and they didn't get on. And for whatever reason, a culture clash, who can say, they left that report into that behaviour, which obviously is there in Buckingham Palace, has never been published or leaked.
He knows what I think about Harry and Meghan. I respected their decision to walk away, then they go and sell their soul, and ever since then they've been trying to play this game. The Duke and Duchess will begin their 4-day tour, although the royal family don't like that phrase, of Colombia, of course, which is very famous for coffee and drugs, during which they are expected to visit a town that has become a symbol of anti-colonial resistance. The couple are being hosted by Francia Marquez, the Vice President, who is known as a vocal champion of Afro-Colombians and women's rights. Tone deaf would be an understatement, Robert. I would love to know, if you have any insight, what on earth do the powers that be in the British royal family make of this? These people who jettisoned or wanted to jettison any involvement in an organisation that they called racist, in an organisation that they thought was outdated, in an organisation that they've done nothing but slag off in return for money, they now are under the impression that they're important enough to go on some sort of fake tour, and so deaf are they, they're going to an exact place that's against the very thing they represent. Help me out.
Well, the royal family, of course, at this time of year, are not actually active. They're up in Balmoral. The King will still be seen doing political boxes. But this is a chance for it. Nothing to do with it being a royal tour or being royal. It's a chance that they know that the rest of the royals are not being seen publicly, so they can get their moment in the sun, if you like, their moment of publicity, and people in the newspapers will write about it. There's not that else in this genre to write about. I suppose that's one way of looking at it. But royal tours are actually quite important. That's the point. They're there to foster soft diplomacy. They're there to promote the Great Britain PLC. They're organised and requested by the British Foreign Office. So they're actually important events in terms of soft diplomacy. This is a stunt dressed up as a royal tour to just promote this couple that are, forever demanding privacy, but actually all they want is publicity to sell their wares. I mean, this has got nothing whatsoever to do with Great Britain, yet it's been seen as this alternative quasi-tour, which I think is rather dangerous, really. And I think Harry should be a little bit ashamed of himself in trying to dress this up as
it's very tawdry, isn't it? Colombia, I'm sure it'll upset people, but Colombia is famous for drugs, for God's sake. What?
Well, it's one thing there, and it's not the greatest government at the moment, and they're under a lot of fire, so that's another thing in terms of the way the British government would look at this. They'd be saying, well, we wouldn't be sending anyone there at the moment. People in Colombia are asking, who's paying for this, who's paying for the security, who's paying for the flights, who's paying for the hotels. So I'm sure that this is a country that's already got enough problems. But this is all about Meghan, this is all about Harry, and some people are really already saying they're just being used by a pretty hopeless government in Colombia, which, you can see that argument.
I find it extraordinary. I mean, I wrote a word down before we spoke, which was tawdry. I think it is tawdry, and I think I don't know where they go from here. I mean, I honestly, genuinely agree with Piers. I think they should be stripped of their Duke and Duchess title. You cannot be. It's this obsession with using the only thing they've got, but that's the very thing, ironically, that they are.
Well, we just saw someone there, one of the dignitaries sort of doing a curtsy to the Duchess. Well, number one, she's not. The Queen Elizabeth made it very clear that they're not to trade or use their royal titles. If they're not using their royal HRH, then there's no need to curtsy or bow to these people. Also, I mean, there's no need for that anyway, frankly, and they don't even ask for it in the current royal family. But this is all part of the. If they are going to be Meghan and Harry, just be Meghan and Harry, and stop making out you're actually in some way connected to the British royal family. Yeah, the children are on the demand. Their demands have been made a prince and a princess, but this is all ridiculous. If you don't want to be part of the system and you want your privacy, then you've got to...
They want their bloody cake. They want their cake, Robert, and they want to eat it. They want to slag off, but the only way they make their money is slagging it off. They want privacy, but then their oxygen is being in the bloody newspapers and being front and centre.
When you see something like this, Jeremy, and you hear that the King's not taking Harry's cause. Well, is there any wonder why? He's embarrassing the institution that the king serves, embarrassing his family. And to be honest, it's going further than that, because it's sort of giving the impression that they've got this alternative royal family. Now, the last person to do that was Edward VIII, and he went running off to Nazi Germany. It's not quite as bad as that, but it's a similar sort of situation that led to a feud that never healed between Edward VIII, who became the Duke of Windsor, and the King, George VI.
I can categorically tell you, you and I are probably cut of the same cloth. I don't believe there is any chance of rehabilitation, and I stand by something I said 5 years ago, and even my old man at the time went, geez, that's a bit upfront. He will come back to the United Kingdom with his ginger bits between his legs, because she has done a complete job on him, and he is going to find it almost impossible. There'll be the bedwetters who say, oh, he's the... No. This is... If you step back from it, it's embarrassing, it's hypocritical, it's tawdry, it's desperate, and that just sums up what they are. And I believe that Harry will get to a point where he'll go, what am I doing? I want to move you on to something very quickly. You know, I used to live on the Long Walk. I was telling the story about 2 years ago. I was just minding my own beeswax one afternoon, and some travellers came onto the Long Walk. It's extraordinary, Robert. About 50 caravans, 20 white Range Rovers, and some travelling community. And usually it takes several court cases and a lot of hassle and whatever. The army came out of Windsor Castle within about 11 minutes. And trust me, they're off down Old Windsor Road, past the farm, before you could say Jack. Extinction Rebellion, stupid unwashed people. Apparently they've announced to the press that they plan to storm Windsor Castle. Officials say that the activists say they aim to break into the royal estate, block roads and target hotels during 3 days of chaos. I myself hope they do, because I'd love to see the bloody army take them out. What about you, Rob?
Well, the other thing is they should remember these people that there are a whole series of tunnels that come out of Windsor Castle. That means if they're storming the castle, these go back to when it was built. That then the army go through the tunnels and then they attack them on both sides. So good luck, Extinction Rebellion.
I think it would be the perfect. I think it would be the perfect end to a hideous organisation. I hope Just Stop Oil join them and the army do a pincer movement and throw them in the Thames.
Reason to celebrate for the Prince and Princess of Wales is that London's air ambulance charity achieved its fundraising goal for 2 new helicopters. This thrilled Prince William. He tweeted, "Fantastic news. This is going to have a life-saving impact." Talk to me a little bit about Prince William's history as a helicopter pilot and, you know, how this truly is one of his passions.
In a way, that was where they started their married life. He was in Anglesey or in Norfolk, you know, the chance to be an air ambulance pilot. That's where they sort of started their married life. So that was his working life, as it were, and a very important job. So you know it's a passionate part of his life. And air ambulances are all the length and breadth of this country depend on charity. And if I remember rightly, wasn't earlier this year a big fundraising ball that Tom Cruise turned up that helped funds? And you know, yesterday we was jumping off, I don't know, whatever he was doing in the closing ceremony, but he does bring stardust to it and obviously helped get the money in. And remember, it's, you know, tough economic times, but to get that level of support and money is testament to the fundraising skills of the Prince of Wales and his team around him. But the air ambulance is, you know, we know he's got certain causes that he's very passionate about. Homelessness is obviously one that he's working hard to try and get a sort of focus of attention on that in this country. But the air ambulance, again, we know is something that he values as hugely important. And the fact is, I mean, I don't know the spec of these helicopters, but I imagine they're pretty sophisticated and will no doubt do a wonderful job once they come into service, for which the Prince of Wales would have contributed hugely in leading the fundraising from the front.
You know, I think one of the conversations I've had a lot lately in the States about Harry and Meghan is this lack of direction, how they just kind of hop on whatever is trendy at the time when it comes to social causes. And you make a really brilliant point when it comes to the Prince of Wales. And the Princess of Wales, you know, just off the top of my head, I can say the Earthshot Prize Prince William is wildly concerned about the environment. Air helicopters is something that I've seen him discuss pretty, you know, and on a repeated basis, to the point where I think that that's seared in my head. And then we have homelessness, homeward charity, and he has laid out an actual tangible list of things he's trying to execute over the next few years, with the result being making some sort of dent in the homeless population. With the Princess of Wales, I immediately think the Early Years Project. I immediately think about Heads Together and how mental health was something that she wanted to end any sort of stigma around. But with Harry and Meghan, they are all over the place, you know, and it makes me wonder why they haven't sat down and had some sort of strategy session where everything they do, whether it be sitting down to talk to somebody, events that they go to, is working towards giving them credibility in this one or two spaces, because it just feels like a spider web when it comes to Harry and Meghan. Over the weekend, we saw a really beautiful clip of the Prince and Princess of Wales. It was Catherine really taking the lead. You can tell she is such a sports nut, celebrating some of your victories at the Olympics. Did you see the video? What was your reaction? I thought Catherine looked absolutely beautiful and had a healthy glow to her, and it was a thrill to see.
Yes, I did. And you have to say, I know that she would have, I'm sure, as she enjoys the summer holidays, and like so many people in this country, would have been glued to the television to see the efforts of athletes from this country and from around the world. But obviously, they would have been rooting very seriously for the GB team. And it was great to see her be part of the celebration. It included people you probably are not overly familiar with, Kinsey, but a few British sports stars, Rebecca Adlington, Claire Balding, who's one of our leading sports presenters. And then we saw Michael Johnson, who works for the BBC out here. And to cap it all, the man who seems to have been everywhere at the Olympics, Mr. Snoop Dogg himself, comes at the end, which is just a bit too cool for school. But anyway, that was, and so, yes, look, Britain did pretty well. I think we won 65 medals. I'm not sure how many goals it was in that total, but all in all, yes, it was a terrific performance from the GB team. Everyone's happy about that. But to see that the Rock family involved and enjoying the coverage and then finding a way to celebrate. The other thing I did notice, obviously, William has grown a holiday beard.
Yeah, I think everybody noticed that holiday beard. He looked very rugged and very handsome. That is so funny that you said that about Snoop Dogg, because I saw the video on Instagram of the Prince and Princess of Wales. And so I was scrolling through Instagram, and it was a picture of Snoop Dogg that initially popped up on their feed. And the running joke has been that Snoop Dogg will just endorse anything throughout the Olympics, whether it's a burrito, whether it's, ski equipment, whatever. It's Snoop Dogg commercials. He's everywhere throughout the Olympics. And so I thought, did this man hack the Prince and Princess of Wales's Instagram account? I mean, truly, he is everywhere. So that was not on my bingo card. The Snoop Dogg leading into a video of the Prince and Princess of Wales. I bet you Prince William got a kick out of that. And the royal fans really falling to pieces over this handsome stubble on his face. Now, you probably know more about this than I do, but we likely don't see that very often due to protocol. Is that the right mindset, or is this just he knows that it looks nicer and he looks more well kept when he doesn't? Well, what is the status there of the beard?
Well, beards are in vogue. I mean, I wouldn't want to grow one, even on a holiday. I start to feel sort of grubby, but it's all the vogue. So I have to say, if he wants to, he's on holiday, why not? And actually, if you look through history, Edward VII, all kings, moustaches, everything was, that's what you grew. It just went out of fashion. Then it has come back, and now all the sort of younger generation, I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but I'll have to admit it, have all got beards now. My youngest son, he goes around with a beard, so it's all part of it. And I suppose for William, when he's on holiday, he can well, he hasn't got much hair on top to let down, but maybe he wants to let some hair out and not worry about shaving. So happy holidays to them all. And obviously, like many, they would have been sitting around with their children watching the extensive Olympic coverage. And the interesting thing at the end, with Snoop Dogg endorsing and saying how lovely the Prince and Princess of Wales is, I wonder how well that went down on your neck of the woods with your couple. But Snoop Dogg, I mean, he was everywhere. He was even turning up to dressage to watch the dancing horses. And so he just would pop up and it seemed to be lovely. He turned up in riding gear, I think, at the dressage one day. I mean, I think he was working for your NBC organization, but he seemed to make sure that Snoop Dogg seemed to be popping up on every organization. But fair play, the Olympics done and dusted. And look, the royal family have sporting connections with it. The Princess Royal was there in her capacity presenting medals. She's a former Olympian herself. Zara Tindall, where I was today going to a place where Zara Tindall will be competing at the Burghley Horse Trials at the beginning of September. And she's a former Olympian. So the royal family have not just status connections. Some of their members of the family have actually competed at Olympics.
I was just going to ask you, if I gave you the opportunity to pick Prince William, Tom Cruise or Mike Graham, what would it be?
Mike Graham with a side of Prince William.
Mike Graham with a side of Prince William. I love it.